One of the most exciting things about bridging the inner and outer between esotericism and psychology, or spirituality and science, is that a bridge already exists. It just hasn't been recognized as such. The bridge between the esoteric and exoteric in general is an electrical one, and the language is that of electricity. Let's continue this idea of an integrating science of synthesis, starting with the understanding of energy and motion. Within this framework, all sciences should find their correct place and right relationship to one another. Following on from this, we can take a look at the future renaissance of alchemy in an electrical guise and see how electrical alchemy relates to the whole field of psychology and psychological transmutation. In the last episode, we looked at how consciousness exists within the perceptual space related to the plane upon which it is functioning. This gave key insights into the mind-body connection. Therefore, being that which links energy with matter, or spirit to form, consciousness is ever existing and evolving within a realm of abstract mathematical relationships. Let's now continue this exploration of esoteric psychology while connecting it with the three fundamental types of motion. So once again, it is time to cross the electric bridge. Psychology is generally defined as the scientific study of mental and behavioral processes. This can be the behavioral and cognitive characteristics of a specific individual, group, activity, or even circumstance. And in the words of Dr. Leary, quoted in the Alice Bailey book, The Soul and Its Mechanism, the behavior of human beings, psychologically speaking, reduces to physiological facts and findings, in turn to those of the field of biology, and then to those of biochemistry, then to chemistry in general, and then inevitably to physics as the science of matter in motion. So let's deal first and foremost with this idea of matter in motion. To begin with a cosmological framework, one postulate of The Secret Doctrine by Helena Blavatsky is that the fundamental characteristic of the whole cosmos is ceaseless motion. She says the one life is eternal, invisible, yet omnipresent, without beginning or end, yet periodical in its regular manifestations. Its one absolute attribute, which is itself eternal, ceaseless motion. It is called in the esoteric parlance the Great Breath, which is the perpetual motion of the universe in the sense of limitless, ever-present space. This tantalizing quote gives us a point of identification for the coming together of esotericism and science, a meeting place for the spiritual and agnostic thinker alike. It can form the basis for a new esoteric dynamism, the psychology of motion and relationship evidenced by any particular organism in response to impacts, internal and external, to its system of response. Just like we explored in episode 3, there are 3 basic types of motion in the cosmos, each one related to an aspect of the divine trinity that lies at the heart of many of the great world religions and mythologies. It is will, power, love, wisdom, and active intelligence. Within the ageless wisdom, these three are also known as electric fire, solar fire, and fire by friction, or simply life, quality, appearance. Perhaps more commonly known as spirit, soul, and body. Each of these three comprise the divine trinity and constitute a fundamental archetype out of which many expressions flow. These three types of motion can be seen at work from the microcosm up through to mankind and all the way to the macrocosm. Again, a quick recap. Active intelligence expresses itself through circuitous rotary motion. Love wisdom expresses through spiral cyclic motion, and willpower expresses through forward progressive motion. This electromagnetic activity of the three divine aspects is to be seen operating on all the planes of the solar system. Out of the fusion of pure will or spirit and the active intelligence and adaptability of the third aspect of matter arises the spiraling periodic motion of solar fire, the ray of love wisdom that builds and sustains all forms within the universe. So the question is, where is this spiraling, form-building type of motion in the universe? To properly answer this, we have to revise the current gravity-based cosmology and replace it with an electric one. In the words of plasma scientists of the Thunderbolts Project, from the smallest particle to the largest galactic formation, a web of electrical circuitry connects and unifies all of nature, organizing galaxies, energizing stars, giving birth to planets, and on our own world, controlling weather and animating biological organisms. There are no isolated islands in an electric universe. So if we see the second ray motion of love wisdom in its building activity on the physical level, what about the building processes that take place in consciousness? In other words, through the thoughts that we are constantly constructing or being impressed by, consciously or unconsciously, throughout our daily lives. As far as the conscious builder of thought is concerned, the midway spot within the brain cavity is where magical work is carried out in relation to the physical plane. Here, the magician employs the spiraling, cohering electrical nature of the second ray of love wisdom to build various grades of substance into their thought form. Alice Bailey wrote that the scientific basis of all meditation work is really to be found in this basic yet hitherto undiscovered aspect of electricity. Putting all of this together, we will have to what amounts to the renaissance of alchemy in a new electric guise. Whatever name it takes, or however it is generally known by, it will be the greatest of all alchemies because of its synthesizing nature. It will literally be the science of synthesis, the manipulation of electrical forces to bind together that which has been separated. For any particular form, this means an initial breaking down process in the scattering of the negative electronic lives that can no longer withstand the terrific rate of stimulation to which the inner positive nucleus of life is being subjected. This is the radiatory phase, or in alchemical terms, the transmutation in the process of accomplishment. It enables the central essence of the form to escape and to gather around itself a new arrangement of electronic lives that can better withstand its new higher rate of vibration. Alchemy became known as the spagyric art, the word spagyric having Greek roots meaning to separate and to join together. Evolution itself is spagyric, involving the densification and separation of spirit in matter, followed by its reunification as something greater, something more than it initially was. This something we call consciousness, and it comes into being through the ever-changing relationships that spirit forms with matter as it passes through it. Humans study these changing relationships through the various sciences in their densest form through chemistry, biology, anatomy, and so forth, and in their more subtle form through psychology. However, the relationship between the dense and subtle sciences, between the material and immaterial aspects of mankind, seems to have been lost, and it is this synthesizing science of alchemy that can reveal it once again, curiously, through the nature of metals. In the forgotten high school chemistry of our youth lies the surprising fact that over 75% of the elements that make up our world are metals. More surprisingly by far is the esoteric teaching that these metals contain the essence of the eventual mental, emotional, and spiritual faculties of mankind. From their originating source, these potencies differentiate into colors and their corresponding sounds. Sound then materializes into the spirit of the metals, the metallic elementals, and finally into the dense physical metals themselves, whereupon the upward arc of evolution begins. From the mineral kingdom, this harmonial and vibratory radiant essence is taken up by plants, giving them color and scent. From plants, it passes into the animals where other various faculties are added, like mobility and metabolism. And finally, it culminates in the principles of manas, or man, intellect, and the intuition, higher and lower mind, the passions and instincts, and so forth. The reason why metals provide the key to this alchemy of synthesis is that they are full of movable electric charge. In other words, the negative electronic lives are always ready to separate and recombine in new relationships to accommodate for the transmuted nature of the indwelling life. Metals are therefore always poised to interact electrically, and this electric alchemical potential of the metal is retained as its vibratory essence moves through the other kingdoms of nature and is the basis of the psychological interactions of a human being. Even from a solely physical perspective, a human is an electrical being relying on metals to communicate. The human brain consists of more than 100 billion nerve cells, each possessing around 100,000 connections. Every second, trillions of electrical signals are transmitted between neurons. That makes the internet seem trivial in comparison. And it is the metals sodium and potassium acting like batteries or pumps that regulate the electrical energy balance in every cell membrane. Everything we see, feel, imagine, or remember expresses itself through a world of electrical signals, all relayed and communicated to and from the central consciousness in the brain through the ionic bonds formed by the electrostatic attraction between these metals. White magic is carried out in the vital airs of the brain cavity, and a percentage of these fiery pranic currents are automatically precipitated into the body as electrical force, bringing about physical and psychological transmutation. Ancient esoteric teachings call someone who is anchoring and spinning the first tenuous threads of the Antakarana a weaver in Fohatic enterprise. Fohat being a Sanskrit term for the subtlest fiery energy of creation, the essence of cosmic electricity. And Fohat is nicknamed the grandfather of electricity, and the Antakarana being the bridge between the lower and higher mind. As this bridge of communication is established and energy pours down from spiritual levels, the higher and lower mind are fused into a creative focal point at the center of an intense magnetic field. It is at this stage that the work of the electrical alchemist comes into play, and the tools of your trade are symbols. A higher psychometric power is employed, whereby the mind, acting like an electromagnet, combines the ability to attract and repel in such a way that the potencies lying behind a symbol can be intelligently evoked. The symbol then comes alive with color, sound, and motion, its fiery essence blending with the atomic fires of the lower planes, awakening into activity certain elemental lives. Specific potencies stream outwards that not only have a transmuting effect on human consciousness, but also an alchemizing effect on the elemental substance in which human consciousness habitually functions. Here we can see the two necessary functions of the heart and mind, as both are organs of consciousness. The heart can attract and ingather all the necessary energies and forces to accomplish a goal, but it is the mind that can then separate, repel, and blend what needs to be transmuted. Let's now look at the various ways in which different humans may go about this, with the emphasis on what we mean by different. Throughout this series, we have spoken much on the 7 planes and subplanes, but less on the 7 rays which are found therein. The study of the 7 rays and 7 planes are like 2 sides of the same coin. We can visualize the planes as having a vertical axis and the rays having a horizontal axis in relation to one another. The same can be said with regards to the subplanes and subrays, as they always have a positive and negative polarity to one another. Why is it important to study the 7 rays? Well, from one perspective, the soul represents the quality inherent within consciousness. Yet there are 7 fundamental qualities that a soul embodies based upon which ray it emanates from. In other words, to know your soul ray is to know your true nature and destiny. A destiny going well beyond the confines of just your personality, and therefore beyond a single incarnation. With that very brief explanation, let's now return to the theme of this episode. The 7 rays of life. Consciousness evolves through the dynamic tension of electrical motion in response to external and internal stimuli. And so far, we have looked at the 3 types of motion that correspond to the trinity: will, love, and intelligence, or life quality appearance. However, we should also consider another divine number that stems from the 3, and that is the 7. All triplicities can be grouped into a septonate, or in 7 ways according to the ratio of their power to one another, And in terms of the esoteric philosophy itself, the divine trinity naturally produces 7 combinations of electric power or motion, which are known as the 7 rays of life. The 7 different power ratios produced by the Trinity, as they are known within the ageless wisdom, are the ray of will power, the ray of love wisdom, the ray of active intelligence or adaptability, the ray of harmony, beauty, and art, the ray of concrete knowledge or science, the ray of abstract idealism or devotion, and the ray of ceremonial order or ritual. As briefly stated earlier, every unit of consciousness finds itself belonging to one of the 7 types of electrical phenomena and is an expression, however great or small, of its general quality. The first 3 rays maintain the same names and characteristics as the Divine Trinity that we have been studying: will, wisdom, and intelligence. They are known as rays of aspect, being expressions of the nature or quality of the Divine Trinity itself. The other 4 rays are called rays of attribute, as they have their root in the 3rd aspect of the Trinity, active intelligence. Being different modes of intelligent activity, these attributes therefore find their synthesis in the 3rd ray. The nature of these rays of attribute may not be as immediately understandable as the rays of aspect, but they can be thought of as modes of intelligent activity, the ways in which life energy adapts and organizes force, substance, and matter together. All units of consciousness, from gods to atoms, are colored and conditioned by the 7 rays, yet resonate to the quality of one ray more than another. In the case of a human being, the basic ray is the soul ray, but then we have the personality ray, as well as the rays that condition the mental, emotional, and physical bodies. This interrelationship creates a vast arena of opportunities and the rich diversity of human consciousness and expression that we can see in the world. A study of the rays is a study of esoteric psychology, and individual development can be measured by the extent that the conditioning rays have been brought into harmony with one another and are under the dominion of the soul ray. In the psychology of the future, this way of approaching development will become increasingly meaningful, and the internal relationships of the personality and its interactions with the environment will be better understood in nearly all avenues of human endeavor. The 7 fundamental qualities of life can also be expressed through many other mediums, both symbolically and literally, and upon pondering this, we can take a moment to pause and reflect upon its scope and scale. Let's now look at how these rays are a bit more related to the functions of a human being, specifically the rays in relation to the energy centers of the body. The rays work through the energy centers or chakras, and this chart shows which rays condition which particular center, in the case of the advanced human being or spiritual aspirant. The 7 main centers of a human being are listed here. In turn, the centers stand behind the 7 main glands of the body and thus work through the endocrine system, secreting hormones into the blood. The production and secretion of hormones from the endocrine system is a function shared with the nervous system in the human body, and the brain is the originator of all electric signals to release hormones. This interdependence between the 2 systems in the human body is a relatively recent scientific discovery. At one time, scientists believed that the functioning and regulation of the endocrine system was independent to that of the nervous system. This next chart shows the relation between the centers and glands. It is said that as a man's glands and nervous system, so is he. Your temperament, natural qualities, and intelligent handling of your life experiences and your environment are determined by your endocrine system. But moving a stage back from this, we can say, as a man's centers, so is he. The quiescence or the activity of certain focal points of energy in the human etheric body determine your character, your method of expression, your type, and also the tenure of your body. Your activities on the physical plane are entirely dependent upon the qualities of force flowing through your centers. And again, moving one stage back from this, the glands and neuroses, as well as the centers, are conditioned by the control or lack of control exerted by the soul working through the 7 rays of life. The 7 types of electrical phenomena, which we call the 7 rays, are therefore the great creative tools of the electrical alchemist. Indeed, when the great white magician, the soul, chooses to descend into the lower worlds, its ray type will determine the method employed in appropriating substance to form its bodies of expression into which it incarnates. The next chart illustrates the different techniques employed in electrically appropriating substances for this purpose, the quality that infuses the process, and the type of substance utilized for the construction of the form. We can now spend a few moments to quietly reflect on how these different techniques can also be applied to the way thought forms are built in meditation. Ray 1, energy, power, technique, grasping, quality, purpose, result, dynamically electrified substance. Ray 2, energy, love, technique, attracting, quality, love, result, magnetically electrified substance. Ray 3, energy, activity, technique, selecting, quality, intellect, result, diffusely electrified substance. Ray 4, energy, beauty, technique, at oneing, quality, unification, result, harmonizing electrified substance. Ray 5, energy, science, technique, differentiating, quality, discrimination, result, crystallizing electrified substance. Ray 6, energy, idealism. Technique, responding. Quality, sensitivity. Result, fluidic, electrified substance. Ray 7, energy, organization. Technique, coordinating. Quality, appearance. Result, tangibly electrified substance. The different techniques of thought form building are based according to your ray structure, and in turn, this will reflect how you interface with the outer world and your peers. For now, this form of advanced esotericism is for the very few, since it has been disseminated from the great spiritual adepts of our planet to the spiritual seekers of the world. Yet for all humanity, its relevance only becomes greater as we move into this new age through the modes of science. More information on how to work as a white magician will naturally come to those who purify themselves and their motives sufficiently and show the willingness to work silently behind the scenes in service to humanity. For humanity as a whole, more general information on the rays will come according to the ability to utilize it for the good of the whole. This is indicated by Alice Bailey's book, Esoteric Psychology, Volume 2, that there is such a thing as electricity, that it probably accounts for all that can be seen, sensed, and known, and that the entire universe is the manifestation of electrical power. All this may be stated and is today coming to be recognized. When mankind arrives at a better understanding of the etheric body and its 7 centers of force, which are all related to the 7 rays, and in their expression show the 7 characteristics and techniques, then some further light can be intelligently thrown upon the whole nature of the 7 types of electrical phenomena, which we call the 7 rays. So once again, the first step is to become knowledgeable of the 7 rays, and then reflect and relate what you have learned with your own life process, so you can determine your own ray makeup. By noticing these qualities in others, you will also notice them within yourself and vice versa. Eventually, the key is to distinguish to what degree one type of force is expressed over another, since all 7 rays are within us to some extent, either as a primary ray or a subray. And if you ask the question why any of this matters, knowing your ray makeup will give you insight into your soul's purpose or dharma, and eventually reveal just how exactly it plans to unfold that purpose within you, which in turn will put you in contact with the greater life which we are all a part of. Until that day comes, consider all of this a working hypothesis. And once it has revealed itself to your own awakened intuition through your own experience, then it can be considered true and factual. And for those who truly and earnestly want to pursue this topic, you can dive into a treatise on the 7 rays by Alice Bailey. Thank you for watching. We hope you have enjoyed this presentation, and in the final episode of the Electric Bridge series, we will explore more of the 7 rays and the electrical nature of the Antakarana in relation to everything we have explored so far. So be sure to subscribe to Monadic Media for all future updates. And if you're feeling generous, consider contributing to our Patreon so we can continue this work. If you would like to study the original article from which this episode was based, you can visit Lucis Trust's website, which is linked in the video description below. We'll see you next time in the final episode.